GPC is an organization that has evolved and has an opportunity to further evolve. And as a member of the board, I feel very strongly that I want to be part of the GPC leadership that's going to have the organization change for the better. The latest name change is very inclusive of the membership of GPC. I feel very strongly that that's a step in the right direction. I also feel that the organization is continuously thinking of how we can demonstrate that governance matters and how we can better serve our membership with resources, networking opportunities. Our Excellence in Governance Awards have evolved. Our annual conference has evolved, and we will continue to do so. We'll introduce even more programs, and I want to be part of that. I feel that I have a lot to bring with my experience, and I also enjoy meeting with my peers on the board, leadership of GPC, and contributing to governance in Canada. I joined the organization early on for two reasons. The tremendous resources offered by the organization, but also the network. It's a key network of governance professionals. At first, mostly corporate secretaries, but it's broadened since. And I tap into that network on a regular basis. I also find that it's more than just education. We celebrate corporate governance. We strive for leadership in corporate governance. And we do that through an incredible conference once a year where we bring experts in corporate governance and we offer opportunities to network and to discuss governance matters. And also the awards, the evening where we celebrate excellence in corporate governance. It's such an important evening in Canada where we celebrate leaders who have best practices and who show excellence in corporate governance.
Governance professionals of Canada are essential to the effectiveness and efficiency of any board structure, whether it's public, private, family, large, medium-sized, or small. You cannot have an effective board in its oversight roles or in its strategic roles or choosing the CEO unless you have competent, knowledgeable, and intelligent support. And all the professionals that come together with the GPC represent that kind of skill set that's necessary. So without it, and I believe it's the only one in the OECD nations, without it we'd be seriously disadvantaged in this country, and I've been always of the opinion that we have had a step forward over the other countries because of the formerly CSCS and now the GPC. So I hope it keeps going for another couple of decades. It will keep us in the forefront, and we've got to continuously work and improve at what we do. But without the GPC, I don't think we'd be getting nearly as far, nearly as fast, nearly as effectively. So keep up the good work, GPC.
It's important to me and to my team for us to be members of Governance Professionals of Canada. We get from it the opportunity to meet with other professionals in the same area. We get to dialogue with them on issues that are of importance to us, help us think through issues that are complex and they're not that obvious. You know, today what we see, the challenges in the boardroom, there is so much legislation and regulation and compliance that has to be on the agenda that it really causes pressure on the boards to be able to balance that and to really focus on what they're trying to be after, which is business goals and strategy, and make sure that's right. Governance applies in so many areas. In my team, for example, we have the ethics group, we have the ESG group, we have the banks team, the subsidiary teams, the continuous disclosure. All of these areas overlap and they integrate. And so governance is pervasive. It's important. In order to make effective decisions, you actually need good governance. And so thinking of those areas, how are our colleagues in other organizations, whether it's financial institutions or other large public companies, how are they thinking about it? It's really important to us to make those relationships and have those conversations.
I think GPC is an important organization because it's really the only organization of its sort that brings together the professionals that might have different backgrounds, different training, lawyers, CAs, trained governance professionals, and puts them together in a single place where everyone can speak to one another and learn from one another. There are lots of organizations that nibble around the edges of governance. We'll have programs on governance. Many different professions lay claim to owning governance, but this is the only organization that brings all of those claimants together and makes them listen to each other. I think for me, the most important aspects of GPC are seeing what other organizations are doing, learning from them, and the collegiality of meeting in person or virtually with others who share interests in areas that I'm interested in. And of course, this all towards the end of not just creating good governance, but creating the conditions for success in any different kind of organization. Governance exists solely for the purpose of creating performance, and it's great to see different ways that people come at increasing the performance of their organizations.
The value of GPC in Canada is to help the governance professionals in terms of their role within an organization, and their role to help boards and the organization to understand and be educated about events that are impacting the organization so that the board is able to respond effectively and be innovative in their responses to issues that are occurring in the country. I believe having an organization such as GPC allows governance professionals to get together, share information, understand what other people are doing, recognize just the heights that some organizations are able to reach, and learn from that and be involved in ensuring that they bring those practices to their own organization. It's an opportunity to share and develop, and with that help their organizations to develop their governance practices.
I think the value of GPC in Canada is it's a forum for like-minded people to sit down and talk about governance. And it promotes good governance in not just at the corporate level, but I think at the investor level as well. I've been involved with the formerly CSCS, and I'll probably still call it that for a while, but for a number of years. And it's been a very useful organization for us as teachers, and previously at the Coalition for Good Governance, in order to promote good governance practices, and there's been a very welcoming environment for that. So I think it's a great melting pot, may be the wrong word, but a great place where a lot of different stakeholders can come together and discuss governance.
The value that I have seen over the years as a member and more recently as a member of the Board of Directors of the Governance Professionals of Canada is of essentially two kinds. The first kind is what I would call an objective benefit that I reap. And that objective benefit is that I learn best practices. So it's not enough for me to sit in my office and cook up strategy on one aspect of governance or another, because my ideas might be excellent and my ideas might be only pretty good or maybe even just so-so. As a member of GPC, I meet my peers and we talk at a minimum. And I say, you know, what do you think about the following approach that I'm taking to, let's say, records management? And we discuss. And sometimes I find out that my ideas are just top-notch and really excellent. Other times, it's a little bit of an eye-opener. And I'll say, oh, explain that to me? You do what? Where's the value in that? And that allows me to up my game. And that's a very, very important thing, or a very important aspect of membership in GPC. The other benefit that it has is one of recognition of excellence within my own organization. People are aware that I'm a member because it takes time away from my job, and I have to explain why I'm going to a conference, and I have to explain perhaps why I'm attending an educational initiative. as a member of the board of directors, being more active in the organization, it has meant frequently traveling on behalf of GPC and going to other cities. When I was based in Montreal, going to Toronto, Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver, and the benefit that I got from really very, very broad exposure to fellow practitioners is just immeasurable. And it's underscored with my employer, who understands that I'm the type of person who not only insists on excellence, but is prepared to put their money where their mouth is, so to speak, and to attend all these events and devote their energy and resources to their fellow practitioners. The Excellence in Governance Awards program is a key piece of the value proposition that Governance Professionals of Canada offers to its members. The reality of governance practice is that people tend to work in isolation. There aren't very many people in the profession working in any given enterprise. Sometimes there's only one person. And what they need an organization like GPC in order to meet their fellows and to learn what the best practices are. Very, very difficult to do that when they're in isolation. And we've been doing that very, very well for a number of years. Our annual conference and our educational initiatives are second to none in governance, I would say worldwide. We are that good. So once you've learned how to do it, you need a little bit of incentive sometimes. You need a little bit of recognition. And I think that the people who do it particularly well, those that stand out as delivering governance programs of very high quality, deserve to be recognized. I think it's an asset for the member. It is certainly, I have no doubt these people are adding it to their CVs, as well they should. And so it's a kind of a recognition piece that needs to be added to the educational program that we run through our annual conference and our educational initiatives. When I meet a fellow governance professional, and the conversation eventually turns to what organizations they're a member of. And I'm not only a governance professional, I'm a lawyer. So I'm a member of the Canadian Bar Association, for instance. I'm a member of the Corporate Council wing of the Canadian Bar Association. I'm a member of Governance Professionals of Canada. And in the past, I've also been a member of similar organizations in other countries. So it's an interesting thing. You know, are you a member? And sometimes the answer is no. And I have to be honest, I came to it because when I entered the function, my predecessor was already a member of a predecessor organization, and I kind of inherited the membership, so to speak. And so there are people out there who aren't members, perhaps because they haven't had that opportunity, perhaps because no one's really opened their eyes to the possibility. And what I would say to them is this. It's really, really, really important to keep abreast of the best of what goes on in governance in Canada, the best of what goes on in the United States and abroad, because nobody has a monopoly on good ideas. And it's very, very difficult to work in isolation and come up with best practices, objectively best practices in every single area of the practice. And the thing that sets governance apart to a degree is that when you come in the morning, and I've said this many times to many people, and I think the reaction to when I tell them this is that they have a similar experience. Contrary to some other areas of law, where you can come in the morning, you know exactly what you're going to be doing until you leave to go home, with governance you never really know. And you can make a list, and you can have a really great idea of how you're going to devote your day, and there's always a surprise. And there's always a surprise because the areas of expertise that come under governance are so varied and so numerous that it's just impossible to know what's next. With that variety is incredibly energizing for the practitioner. But it's also daunting because it means that you really have to strive for excellence in every single one of those areas. And it can be very, very difficult if you don't have special resources at your disposal. And so becoming a member of Governance Professionals of Canada is one of the best things you could possibly do. It'll give you a toolbox. If you hit an area you're unfamiliar with, you can pop your toolbox open and you can find 5 or 6 wizardly tools that will make you look like a genius. People think of governance. They think first and foremost of public companies. Few people, or many people, don't understand that the world of governance has grown dramatically over the past 10 or 15 years. And the scope of enterprises who have a stake in governance today is much broader than it ever was before. It includes obviously the public companies, but it means also crown corporations, it means not-for-profit organizations, and it means large private enterprises who have perhaps a single shareholder or a small group of shareholders. Every single one of these enterprises has governance challenges and could do better govern themselves if they understood what the best practices were that they could apply. There's no doubt in my mind that the 3 most important elements in Governance Professionals of Canada's value proposition, number 1, first and foremost, is networking. Because if you eliminated the other 2, you would still derive an immense value from networking. You meet your peers and you learn how they do their jobs in complete excellence. The second is education. Education is tremendously important. And you really need to learn how governance structures work. There are so many of them and they're so complex. I compare them to a clockwork. And every single program within governance is a gear in a clock. And it means that you have to understand how that timepiece works, because you can't turn one gear without affecting all the others in most cases. So you learn this in part by doing the job, but in large part, perhaps most importantly, you learn that by educating yourself, learning about governance structures and how they interact. The final element in the value proposition for Governance Professionals of Canada is in recognition. The recognition that you are accomplishing your job at a very high level, the comfort and the knowledge that you are applying recognized best principles is an absolute key element of the value proposition.
Excellent.
You know, I'll tell you why GPC is important, and it takes me back to my early days in organizing the committee, the TSX committee, which published the report Where Were the Directors in 1994. And the initiative at that time was to tap the business community and identify and articulate good corporate governance practices. So we weren't groundbreaking at all. What we were really doing was organizing the principles that, or the practices that well-governed corporations use in their governance systems. I think what GPC does on an ongoing basis is to continually work with those governance practices and test them, and in our dynamic environment, I think that's important, and to innovate with new practices that again respond to our dynamic environment. You know, we see things like Say on Pay have become an important component of our capital markets. We see proxy advisors and the role that they play in the governance of our corporations. What I believe GPC does is it tracks how corporations respond to these innovations through its membership. GPC membership appropriately named governance professionals, and governance professionals are the people that keep track of these developments, and they identify and articulate governance practices that are appropriate for the environment we're in.